Varun, please forward the message in the group to join, okay, as early as possible. We'll start. We are about to start the session now.
Yes, sir. Let's start.
Please, let's start. Yes. Yes. We'll start the session within a minute. Okay? Shivani, can you change your background, virtual background? Is it possible for you?
Sir, actually, I was trying to do it, but
no. But you can certainly put on your camera then. Possible. Yeah.
Now?
Can you start your camera, Shivani?
Yeah, but sir, I'm going to share my screen, so maybe.
Yeah. But right now we need to take one photographs. Okay, in group photograph. For that we need. Yes, participants. Yeah, very good afternoon, my dear participants. I hope you had a lunch, and now we are again, going with the another very important session from our own alumni. Okay, so let us start with this session. First, on behalf of School of Pharmacy, I would like to welcome to our own alumni, proud alumni, Shivani Mahadik, on this virtual workshop on global pharma regulatory affairs. She did B.Pharm from Srinagar Institute of Pharmacy. After that, she had joined our college for the PGDRA course in 2020, and she successfully completed that course. After that, she got placed through campus. That's really one of the best part from her career point of view. And now she's working as a junior regulatory specialist in Covance Limited, which is one of the dream company. All of you know, whenever you join DRA and all, we always wanted to go such a company. And she got placed in that company with very good package. All of you know, MIT is known for value-based education, life transformation, center of excellence, and 100% placement assistant. That is one of the best part in MIT. When you join any course, we always wanted to have the placement. So probably you will find this kind of assistant in our college. She's the best example. She probably going to talk on that particular aspects. So I will hand over the session to our own proud alumni, Shivani Mahadik. Over to you, Shivani, please. Yes, Shivani.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, for a lovely introduction. Yes, so good afternoon, everybody. As sir introduced, first I'll just give a small introduction again. My name is Shivani Sandeep Mahadik, and I completed my B.Pharm, and then I joined MIT for post-graduation diploma in drug regulatory affairs, which was a very great course. And after that, through campus placements only, and through the help of Police Vettiha sir and his guidance, I got placed in Covance Private Limited, LabCorp. So I'm doing great, and I've joined as junior regulatory affairs specialist, and it's been 1 year now for me to doing the job. So today it's really my pleasure. I would to thank MIT faculty for giving me this opportunity to present myself and give some kind of review regarding this course. So therefore, I'll give a short presentation regarding what is included in the course and what kind of advantages you have in the course, and a small review against the opportunities. So I'll just share my screen. Just a second.
Yeah, you can share. I have given the right to you.
Yeah. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can certainly see. Yeah.
Yeah, is it visible?
Yes, very much visible and very much audible.
Okay, so as you can see here, I'm going to give a short introduction regarding the course, that is post-graduation diploma in drug regulatory affairs, and then I'll be talking about some opportunities in regulatory affairs sectors which I am aware of now. Now, it's been 1 year in this industry, so I can give some kind of review against it. So let's start. So first is the regulatory affairs course interview. So it includes drug regulatory aspects, medical device regulatory aspects, vaccines and biologics, herbal and cosmetics, food and nutraceuticals, and clinical research. So you can see, if you see the other courses, you'll find mostly regarding the drugs and medical devices. But this course includes right from vaccines, herbals, cosmetics, food, and nutraceuticals as well. So these are the categories which are regulated by the regulatory authorities globally. So you have different regulatory affairs requirements for all these categories. So you will be studying in detail regarding these all the categories in this course. Then next is the topic covered. So what are the topic covered under those categories? So first is the global regulatory submission. Now, as you all know that, we have different regulatory affairs for different regions of in the world. So, there are different regulatory submissions requirements for, you can say for drugs, there are different regulatory submission requirements. For medical devices, there are different regulatory submissions. Then for the food, it is completely different. Cosmetics, herbals, it's different. So, in this course, you will get a detailed information, and you will be studying in detail like what kind of requirements and how each category is governed by the regulatory authorities in US, in India, in Europe, Australia, New Zealand, etc. Then you have various forms such as NDA and ANDA. So now once you'll get to know in detail about the regulatory affairs, you will get to know that whenever a drug or a medical device or any category is to be registered, it needs submission of various forms. So these are the main forms, that is the new drug application, abbreviated new drug application. So you will be studying in detail about what are different requirements for the different categories. That is, for drugs, you have different requirements in the NDA and ANDA form. For medical devices, it is different. For food, nutraceuticals, it is different. So in this course, you'll be studying about these submissions, which are the main part of the regulatory affairs. That is the main work of the regulatory affairs. Then discovery and development. So now discovery and development of each category is very different. For drugs, right from research and development till it goes to the market, there is different kind of there are different phases, there are different steps, and each phase requires a regulatory overview or regulatory requirement. So you'll be studying in detail about how a drug is discovered and developed, and then it comes into the market. Similarly, for medical devices and vaccines and biologics, the vaccines and biologics have different development and discovery process. So in this course is given very in a proper way, that it's taught in a proper way, that how a drug or a medical device or a vaccine or a biologic is discovered, developed, and then it comes into the market. Then again for the various health authorities requirements. So as you know, there are different health authorities for different region, and they have different requirements for each category. For its governance, how they are governed, how they are regulated, what are different activities related to it. So you'll be studying in detail about that. Then is the ECTD and CTD submissions. So I know many of you who know about the regulatory affairs, or who have read about the regulatory affairs, must know that CTD and ECTD submissions are the major part of regulatory affairs. It includes the dossier completion and submission. You have the ECTD software in which you have to publish all the documents according to the dossier, and then submit it to the health authorities. So this is the main and the important part of the regulatory affairs. So in this course, the CTD and ECTD submission part is really taken very well, and you understand all the concepts, all the different types and categories, and how we have to publish it, and everything you will be learning. Then is the post market regulations. So it's not, regulatory affairs is not limited only to the discovery and into the drug comes into the market. It is the whole life cycle of the drug. So post market regulations are also very important in regulatory affairs. So it's not just submissions before the market comes into the drug. So these post market regulations are also covered. in this course, and you'll know about what kind of the requirements are there after the drug is placed into the market. Then is the clinical trial regulations. Clinical trial regulations forms a major part of drug discovery. It may be anything. It may be drug, it may be a vaccine or medical devices. Clinical trial, even a cosmetic. So clinical trial regulations are a must. And clinical trial regulations have a whole different kind of a regulatory requirement, right from the phase 0, phase 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then the post market phase. So I think in this course you'll be studying about the phases as well as the regulatory requirements which are required during the phase. So the clinical trial regulations are also covered in a very, very good way. Then apart from these categories, what are the other things covered in this course are very, very fascinating, I would say, because you will not find these kind of things in many other courses. So these are the miscellaneous things which are covered. So first is the introduction to various health authorities. Obviously, that is WHO. Everybody knows it is World Health Organization, which is governs the global. It is a global, I would say, a health organization which governs everything. Then it is the second is the US FDA, that is United States Food and Drug Administration. US it governs all the activities related to the drug and other therapeutic devices in US. So US FDA it includes what constitutes of US FDA, what are its activities, what are the different categories in US FDA. Then also what are the Code of Federal Regulations. It is a major part of US FDA, that is CFR, Code of Federal Regulations. So this you'll study in US FDA. Then is the European Medicine Agency. This is the health authority of Europe. So Europe also has its very different kind of requirements, because there are so many countries included in Europe. They each have different languages, they each have different cultures. So European Medicine Agency has a whole lot of new requirements for each and everything. So even in the European Medicine Agency, there are different requirements for different regions. So you'll be studying in detail about the European Medicine Agency. Then fourth is the CDSCO, that is Central Drug Standard Control Organization. This is the health authority of India. So you'll be studying about what are the different regulations and regulatory requirements of drugs, medical devices, food, and everything in India. So what are the parts, different departments in CDSO, and everything will be covered under this. Then is the TGA, that is Therapeutic Good Administration. It is the health regulatory authority of Australia. And you'll be studying about in detail what are the different departments and what constitutes TGA and how the therapeutic goods are governed in Australia. So these are the various health regulatory authorities which will be introduced in this course in a very detailed way. And I think most of the jobs which are related to regulatory authorities are for these markets. Obviously, there are China, Japan, everything. And we'll be studying about that as well. But these are the main regulatory authorities which I would say are covered in detail. And I think these are the most important ones, most important regions. Then second is various pharmacopoeias. Obviously, you know. Hello?
Yes. Shivani, you can continue.
Yeah. Then various pharmacopoeias, as you all know, that different health regulatory authorities have their own pharmacopoeia. That is your United States pharmacopoeia. Then you have British pharmacopoeia. You have European pharmacopoeia, Indian pharmacopoeia, Japanese pharmacopoeia. So you'll be studying about different pharmacopoeias and how are they different from each other. Like what are the differences between them and everything. So this is the one point covered. Secondly is regulatory guidelines of ICH. Now, ICH is International Council for Harmonization of Technology Requirements for Pharmaceutical and Human Use. So ICH, everybody knows ICH, one of the important body which plays a role of harmonizing the requirements, because we are importing and exporting. There is a trade between the countries. So every country has different requirements. So it is very difficult for every country or every pharmaceutical company to do to perform their activities or the process according to the each and every regulatory authority. So here the ICH plays an important role. it harmonizes the requirements, and it forms a set of rules and regulations which are globally accepted. So this becomes very easy for the global trade and for the companies as well. So you'll be learning about the guidelines, that is QESM, that is quality guidelines, efficacy guidelines, safety guidelines, and miscellaneous guidelines. So you'll be studying in detail about that as well. Then is the technology transfer and regulatory compliance. So technology transfer is when a drug or when any therapeutic category is transferred from the R&D department to the commercial processes. So it is technology transfer. So then in that, there are different kind of requirements for a pharmaceutical company, to qualify that and everything. So you'll be learning about the technology transfer as well as the regulatory compliance which is related to it. Then is the quality by design. So in this course, you'll be studying about various topics regarding the quality assurance as well, because quality assurance and regulatory affairs go hand in hand. So you have to study about the quality assurance as well. So here in this course I have quality by design, then quality management system. So these topics are covered as well. So quality and quality assurance is a major part of regulatory. Then is the dossier compilation. Dossier compilation is one of the major part of regulatory, and dossier compilation includes collecting the various documents from different departments for each module, that is quality, clinical, non-clinical module. You'll be studying in detail. So these documents you have to either you have to write it, either you have to compile it, and once it is compiled you have to publish it on the software, that is ECTD and CTD submissions. So dossier compilation as well you will be studying. And then is the intellectual property rights, that is patents, trademarks, copyrights. So everybody knows intellectual property rights, but you will be studying in detail like what are the patents, what are its requirements, and other things or other regulatory requirements related to the patents. Then trademarks, copyrights, these are very important part in the pharmacy and pharmaceutical industries. So it depends upon like the patents, which includes the branded drugs, and then the generic, and then trademarks. So I think this is the important part of the regulatory affairs as well. So you will be studying in detail about the intellectual property rights and its requirements. Then this is a short I've done, like why should you choose the MIT WPU PGDRA program. So first is a well recognized university. Obviously you get that an advantage, as MIT is a well known university, and getting a certificate from the well known university is, everybody wants that. Then secondly is hands-on training experience. The staff and the teachers, the professors are highly skilled, they're experienced, and whatever the knowledge, whatever the teachers, it's like really, it's you will not find it in books or on internet. They have their own kind of experience, and they really teach us very well. Then secondly, a highly trained staff. All the staff of MIT University is very, very supportive. It's very well trained. They help us a lot. It's not only the professors who teach us. Even if you go to any other professor, they'll try to help you as much as possible. Then MIT also provides you with different workshops for skill development. During my course of my period of this course, I have attended 2-3 workshops myself, and it helped me so much for the placement and for the interviews. So the soft skill development and other management trainings are provided. So there are many workshops and extracurricular activities in MIT. So that is a very good plus point. It's not only the course, you will get many other things. Then secondly is very good placement assistance. So obviously from my experience, I can say that the placement is really very good. Obviously you get a very good package, and also the training and placement staff helps you a lot. They try to give you as much as opportunities. They try to bring as much as companies they can. And even like for me, it was really a core I would say it was a very serious COVID situation when my placement was going to be there, but still the MIT placement staff, they managed to bring the companies and really got us placed as as much as they can help. Then the practical training on software, this is a very good a plus point, that they provide actual training on the software, that is the CTD and ECTD software. So you will be really getting a very good and experienced professors to teach you that, and you will be actually performing that. You'll be publishing that, obviously not in the real this, but it will be like a dummy software where you'll actually get the experience of publishing the documents. And obviously a very good library facility. MIT has a very good library facility, so you'll not be short on notes. The teachers will provide you notes, the PPTs, but as well as on more than that, you will be having a good library facility. They have a lot of books, and even for the regulatory for the course, they have bought so many books, extra books for us. So I think the library facility is one of the plus point, and you don't have to go on internet every time and search. You'll get much more good information in the books. So that is one of the plus point. And it's an all inclusive course. You have drugs, you have food, you have nutraceuticals. So if you compare the different courses of RA, you will find that they don't have so much of syllabus in their courses. You'll be studying of drugs and medical devices or vaccines, but here you will be getting everything, that is right from food and herbal to drugs and medical devices. So I think it's a very good course. So you're not only limited to pharmaceutical, but you can get opportunities in food and herbals also. So I think that's a very good part. So that is one of the reason I chose this course. So these are the main points which I think that it makes a MIT WPU course very much better than the other courses. So I would really suggest those who are trying to pursue their career in regulatory and who want to do some kind of regulatory course, I would really suggest that please go for MIT, because in other courses you will find there are not of that much of syllabus, and here you will get a whole new experience in the MIT WPU. So now I'll give a brief overview regarding the opportunities in regulatory affairs. Of course, I'm not a very experienced in this, but whatever knowledge I have regarding this, as now I've been in the industry for 1.5 years, so I can really tell you. So there are opportunities in regulatory affairs. There are 3 types of opportunities, I would say. First is the core regulatory opportunities. Then you have regulatory opportunities in IT sector and government regulatory opportunities. So let's see what in everybody's in detail. So core regulatory authority opportunities are opportunities in pharma companies such as Lupin, Cipla, Glenmark, Sun Pharma, and many more. So these are the core pharmaceutical companies in which you have these opportunities. That is mostly the submission to regulatory authorities, ECTD, CTD submission, those are compilation. So the job posts which are included in these are the document writing. That is whatever document are published on ECTD. You have to, you are the owner or you're the writer of that. So, you have to write it accordingly. You have to prepare the documents accordingly and then submit it. Then second is the document compilation. So one department is there for...
Shivani, am I audible?
Yes.
Shivani, Dr. Amol here.
Yes.
We wish to continue this particular lecture. I mean, tomorrow again, can you please address the gathering? Today, we have with us the international faculty. So can you conclude the concluding remark from your side about this course?
Okay, sure, sir.
Because of time constraint, Shivani.
Yes, sir. No problem. So, so that was a thing I would say. Regarding this IT sector is like obviously the life cycle management and post regulatory activities, and then obviously the government job opportunities, which drug inspector and all. So the concluding part, I would just like to say that the regulatory affairs is a great career and there are a lot of opportunities. So I would really I would suggest all the new graduates, that is BPharm and MPharm graduates, to even if you're doing MPharm or something, you can really do this course. It's a weekend course now, so you have a great opportunity. I think it's a plus point on your resume and it will lead you success, like lot of success. So thank you so much.
Shivani, we need your help again, huh?
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much.
Shivani, really, I would like to express my thanks to you for sparing your time in your busy schedule, because you're working with the organization Covance. And thank you very much. I extend my sincere thanks on behalf of our Dean, Dr. Limay sir. And
thank you, Shivani. Thank you.
and other faculty.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shivani. Thank you, Shivani.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So I will hand over the session to Amol sir. Shivani,
Yes, sir.
the question, and we'll forward the questions to you. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you once again, Shivani. Am I audible, Doreen sir?
Yes. You are.
Yes, sir. Doreen sir, am I audible?
He's on mute, sir, I think.
Sir, you are on mute.
I'll just unmute. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. You can hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Very clear.
And you can see me as well? Very good.
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Yeah. It's very nice to see you also.
Same here, sir.
Dr. Amul,
Yes, sir.
we start at 1:30, no?
Yes, sir. It is
4 minutes.
125 now. I mean,
Yes. 1:35. Okay.
no, 125. It is 125 now. Within 5 minutes, we
125.
are going to start.
Yeah, we have 5 minutes, sir, actually.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Sir, shall we take some question, 2-3 questions to Shivani?
Yes. We still have 3 minutes, no?
Yes.
Yeah. We'll take
Yeah,
two
take
questions.
One or two questions.
Yeah, 1 or 2 to Shivani. Yeah. Yes, Shivani, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Shivani, actually, I will take some questions to you. Student asking about your experience regarding the course. How did you manage during your curriculums and all these things? Can you just highlight on that?
Yeah, I think that MIT is one of these great. It's a great, like, the timing is really great, I would say. So you can really manage your other things as well as this course. So there is nothing so much to hard work to do. Obviously, the staff is very helpful. So even if you have some kind of issues regarding the timing or the lectures, you can always share with them. So yeah, that
Shivani,
is
start
one.
your video, please. Shivani, please start your
Can you
video.
start your video? We'll have one photograph to all of us, please. All of you, can you put on your camera? We'll have one photograph before starting this. So all of you, all audience, all participants, please put on your camera. We have to capture some photograph as a memories. We have with us our eminent speaker, Dr.
Van Doren, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, students. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you, Shivani, for your sparing. Yes. Yeah. Over to Amol, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Satish, sir. And thank you, Shivani, for your words.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Pankaj, are you there? Pankaj Shirbate.
Professor Amol, you can start. Huh? You can start introduction and.
Okay, sir.
We start in time.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Doren, sir, can you start your video, please?
I'm lost. Oh, there we are. Yeah.
Okay, sir. So all the participants, today we are very fortunate to have with us the international speaker from Netherlands, Van Doren, sir. He completed his PhD in 1982 from Groningen State University, thesis PhD in 1985, marketing management in 2002, Tilburg University of Applied Sciences, Master of Education, MED. Doren sir had wide work experience from 1976 to 1986. Sir worked with Philips Dufar NL, various positions in pharmaceutical development, that is GMP, GLP, licensing, as well as sales also. From the year 1986 to 1989, sir worked with NPBI in Netherlands, sales and marketing manager, as a sales and marketing manager. In 1986 to 1997, He worked with Medistad Holland, Commercial Director, Medical Disposable. From the year 1997 to 2002, Sir worked with Banner Pharma Cap, Netherlands, as a Commercial Director, Cosmetic, Food Product and Pharmaceuticals. From 2002 to 2011, Sir worked as a professor and teacher at Utrecht University of Applied Sciences, Pharmaceutical Management Administration. From 2011 to 2019, Utrecht University of Applied Science as a research professor, pharmaceutical innovation and clinical research. He also worked from 2017. Sir also from 2020, Sir is working as a trainer, technical research and business administration, pharmaceutical solution, Rotterdam, Netherlands. He also served as a various other part-time positions as a board of director, Pharmacovigilance Center, Netherlands. Doren sir also authored 60 research articles in peer-reviewed journals. With this brief introduction, I request Adfan Doren sir to proceed for his talk on the topic European registration of investigational medical pharmaceuticals. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much. And listening to your introduction, my conclusion is that this long CV only means that I'm already very old, because yeah, it's a lot of things that I have done in the past. But thank you very much. Yes, I'm very happy to be with you today, and yeah, be it from a large distance, but well, Zoom is of course a good means to have the feeling to be close to you as well. So I'd like to talk to you today about European registration of investigational medicinal products. Could you share my PowerPoint, please?
Okay, sir. Wait, sir, just a minute.
Professor Van Doren, we will play your video slides, and you can say next slide. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Dr.
Okay.
Yes,
Amol.
sir. Yes, sir.
You will please share the screen, and then when Professor Doren says next slide, then you can move to next slide.
Yes, sir. Just a minute, sir. Wait, sir.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yes, sir. Can you see this presentation now?
I can right now. Yes, yes. Could you set it on? Yeah, excellent, excellent, wonderful. Yeah, I can see it. I hope everyone else can also see it. So this is my presentation, and please feel free afterwards to share it with any one of you who would like to read it again. No problem at all. So European registration of IMPs. I have to advise you that in the world of drug development, there are many abbreviations, but don't worry, I will try to explain them to you. An IMP is an investigational medicinal product. We call it a medicinal product because it's not yet a drug. A drug product is a product with a proven efficacy. So a product on the market that can be used by prescription or as a generic. But before it becomes a drug, we call it an investigational product and medicinal product because it may have, we hope it will have medical properties. So that's what we're going to talk about, European registration. Let's go to the next slide, please. The rules and the regulations, the regs that are in the context of how to be able to approve a product for marketing are on the one hand based on the European Medicines Agency, the EMA, but also of the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration in the United States, the PMDA, that's the Japanese Drug Administration, and ICH, which is the International Council of Harmonization. That's an international organization in which amongst others, these regulators are collaborating. Could you please give me the next slide? Yeah, we will concentrate on Europe because, well, I'm European, and we're going to discuss market authorization. So what will be needed for a product to get the allowance to or the license to put it on the market. And of course, we're also going to talk about clinical trial regulation. So what is needed before a clinical trial, a trial in human beings is able to be performed. We will discuss briefly ICH, and we will discuss briefly FDA as well. I can advise you that FDA is in essence, although the terms are a little bit different, the abbreviations are a little bit different, but in essence, it is similar to Europe, but a bit easier, because in the United States, there's only one regulator, the FDA. In Europe, you have regulators in every country. And that will sometimes make it difficult, for instance, with respect to the fact that all the regulations have been have been the result of negotiations between all the different countries, and that makes it quite complex. On the other hand, you can also say it's quite an endeavor that that we succeeded in it. So let's go to the next slide, please. So here you see the European Union. On the left, you see the European Union, including the United Kingdom. Well, everyone knows, I suppose, that the United Kingdom now is no part of the European anymore. What you can also see here is that Norway and Switzerland do not belong to the European Union. That having said, both Norway and Switzerland, they comply with the regulations such as the ones that are valid in Europe. So as far as possible, they comply with these regulations as well. The European Union now consists of 27 different countries, so it is still quite a large area. Let's go to the next slide, please. So here are the basis regulations for what is needed for drug registration and registration for clinical trials. We have regulations, directives, guidelines, opinions, and recommendations. A regulation means that it is a description of what needs to be done, similar to national law, and binding and applicable to all EU countries. They overrule national law. So a regulation, a European regulation, is, as you could say, higher than the national laws in the different countries. Yeah. For instance, the ECTR, the European Clinical Trial Regulation, it was issued in 2014. And it will become valid in the beginning of 2022, so early next year. And that is a regulation which is binding to all countries in Europe with respect to how clinical trials should be carried out. Directives are a little bit different. They set out general rules, but they need to be transferred into national law. So the member states have the freedom to design their own laws, as long as the aims of the directives will be met. So it cannot be less, it could be more in one or two member states, but it cannot be less, and directives have to be translated into national law. So that is different from regulations. Regulations overrule national law, directives do not overrule, but have to be applied by the different member states. Apart from that, we also have guidelines. Guidelines are not legally binding, they are just an advice. There are scientific guidelines, procedural guidelines, administrative guidelines, or regulatory guidelines. For instance, early last year, there was a guideline by EMA on how to deal with existing current clinical trials in the corona situation. Because the COVID situation meant that clinical trial monitors could not visit hospitals in order to do the monitoring of clinical trial. So that had to be done remotely, and there were some guidelines on how to deal with that. A guideline is not binding. Yeah. We also have opinions and recommendations. They simply describe a current line of thinking. And in the end, they may lead to directives or to regulations, but that is not to say, it's just a current line of thinking. EudraLex is a listing of all rules and regulations in the European Union. At the moment, there are 10 different volumes relating to issues such as, for instance, GMP, good manufacturing practice, but also to pharmacovigilance, so the safety testing or safety assessment of products on the market. There also are two volumes on veterinary products. And for instance, there also is one volume on maximum residue limits, so quality of pharmaceutical products. So that's what EudraLex, and in EudraLex you can find all the information, and it is something that you can find on the internet. Next slide, please.
Yes, sir. Change the slide.
Yeah. Okay. So the EMA is the European Medicines Agency, and the European Medicines Agency is a decentralized agency of the European Union responsible for the scientific evaluation, supervision and safety monitoring of medicines in the EU. Medicines means medicines for humans as well as medicines for veterinary purposes. It's an agency of the European Union. So the boss of the EMA directly reports to the European Committee. So it is very high in the organization. It was formerly called EMEA, and EMEA, the second E stands for evaluation, but now the abbreviation is simply European Medicines Agency. They have a budget of around 320 million, so they're quite a lot of money, and there are 900 people in staff. The headquarters was formerly in London, in the United Kingdom, but it isn't anymore. So can I have the next slide, please? Next slide, please. Yes. Because of the Brexit, the United Kingdom decided to stand on its own. So and one of the first things that the first results of that was that the headquarters of the EMA had to move to one of the member states. And eventually it turned out that Amsterdam was the lucky city. So everyone from London moved to Amsterdam. Well, not everyone. There were lots of people, like secretaries, administrative people, who remained in London. But the major staff, they went to Amsterdam. Next page, please. Yeah, a new building was made for them in Amsterdam, in what we call the Zuidas. That means the southern part of Amsterdam, which is actually the golden coast of Amsterdam. If you want to buy an apartment in that area, you have to be a multimillionaire. But for them, for the EMA, the Dutch built this building. They started moving into it just before the corona pandemic. So it is a large building, but it has not been very used at the moment. But hopefully that is something that will come. So let's go to the next slide, please. Yeah, no, yeah, thank you. The Medicines Healthcare and Regulatory Agency in the United Kingdom is now independent from EMA, and they had to decide for how are we going to handle drug registration in the United Kingdom. And they have said we are going to continue to recognize as much of the European regulations as possible. And the EMA did the same for English authorizations. So the, excuse me, the European Union will continue to recognize the United Kingdom market authorizations, MAs, GMP inspections, QP certification. QP is a quality person, so that's the person responsible for releasing batches, products, etc. Labeling requirements in the UK will remain unchanged, even although from now on different regulations in the UK may hold, but pharmaceutical companies do not have to change the labels for their products in the UK simply because of the fact that the UK now is not part of the EU anymore. Medical devices, same mutual recognition in principle, and that holds for pharmaceutical products as well. The ECTR, the European Clinical Trial Regulation, again, that's the regulation relating to how to deal with clinical trials, will be implemented in the UK as far as possible. And the MDR, the Medical Device Regulation, which is a new regulation in the European Union, started in, or it was issued in 2017, it came into action 2 months ago, will also be applicable to the United Kingdom. So next slide, please. So the EMA, let's go to the EMA. The EMA goals and responsibilities to protect human and animal health by ensuring that safe and effective medicinal products will be available on the European market. So human and animal health, they also apply to veterinary products, and the medicinal products should be safe and effective. Safe, not too many side effects, or I should say the risk-benefit balance should be sufficient. You can imagine that side effects for a paracetamol product should be less than for an anti-cancer product, obviously. And it should be effective, that the company owning the product has to prove that this particular product works in the particular indication area. EMA is responsible for the scientific assessment and subsequent authorization of medicinal products in the EU. So the assessment, does the product work? Is the product safe? And if the answer is yes, then the product can be authorized, and that is the license for the market authorization holder, the MAH, to be able to bring the product on the market in the EU. They're also responsible for safety monitoring of marketed medicinal products. So once the product is on the market, it is not completely, the market authorization holder is not completely free. They have to gather ongoing data on the safety of the product. For instance, if you have a COVID vaccine, it is not so that once the vaccine has been authorized, that the market authorization holder then is free to do anything he likes. No, he has to collect the data on the safety, side effects, and bring these products regularly to the EMA, so that EMA can decide, is the product still safe and effective enough? Is the balance between safety and efficacy still okay? The other thing, they also encourage innovation, pharmaceutical research and innovation in any way they can. So let's go to the next slide, please. Yeah, this is from the 2019 annual report, and it's a description of what they did in that particular year. One of the projects they had was what they called PRIME, Priority medicines scheme. They support by means of money, but also by means of advice on how to register, how to design clinical trials, IMPs, investigational medicinal product, that address an unmet medical need. There are many diseases still that have no medication at all. For instance, Alzheimer. Yeah, there's now one product on the market has been registered in the United States against Alzheimer, but it is not the ultimate solution to the Alzheimer problem. So Alzheimer still is an unmet medical need, and any company that would like to develop products against Alzheimer can seek advice from EMA. There are, of course, medicine safety issues, big data, real world data. Of course, you can imagine that during the clinical trial phase, only limited safety data can be gathered. For instance, a side effect that occurs once in a million times, you will not be able to see that during the clinical trial phase. So you need real world data in order to assess such data. They also worked on the CTIS, the Clinical Trial Information System. We will come to that. And they also worked on conditional marketing authorization, adaptive pathways. A good example is COVID. That was not discussed in 2019, but I added it here because that's typically an adaptive pathway. The registration of COVID vaccines went extremely fast. And that had to do with the fact that EMA sort of accepted a rolling forecast, a rolling evaluation of the data. They also are working on in collaboration with HTA bodies. HTA means Health Technology Assessment, and that is the science of how to define a right price level for drug products. Yeah, so health technology assessment has to do with the pricing. They also worked on impurities. For instance, nitrosamine is an impurity that occurs in food, but also in drug products. It's carcinogenic. And one of the issues at that time was that it was also found in latex gloves used by surgeons in hospitals. And of course, you shouldn't accept a carcinogenic genetic product in gloves that are used for surgical procedures. Medicine shortages is also something they worked on. And in 2019, they approved 66 new human drug products and 15 in the veterinary field. So that is quite a lot. They had 405 safety updates, which led to changes in the text of the package inserts. Yeah, and that had to do with what we call pharmacovigilance. So the description of the real world data on safety of products on the market. And of course, they were also dealing with the move from London to Amsterdam, because that was at the time something that they had to take a lot of, devote a lot of effort to. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is the agency, the EMA, the European Medicines Agency, and they work in different groups. So the actual work is not done by these 900 persons of staff, but it is done by committees. And these committees consist of experts from the different member states. And we have 7 committees. The CHMP is the Committee for Medicinal Products for Human Use. That is the committee that assesses all the data supplied by the pharmaceutical company on the development. So all development data, non-clinical data as well as clinical data, are assessed by the CHMP. They come up with a sort of assessment report in which the conclusion then is, yes, this is a product we can register, or no, this is a product that cannot yet be registered, more data are needed, or something like that. Or it's also possible that they say, no, this cannot be registered at all. Yeah. So that's the Committee for Medicinal Products for Human Use. There also is what we call a PRAC, P-R-A-C. That's the Pharmacovigilance Risk Assessment Committee. And that is a committee that assesses data of products already on the market. Pharmacovigilance is safety evaluations of products that are already on the market. So CHMP is for products not yet on the market. The PRAC is for products already on the market. CVMP is for veterinary products. We also have a COMP, I will come to that later briefly, orphan medicinal products. There is an HMCP, herbal medicinal products. A CAT is for advanced therapies, and there's a special committee for pediatric products, because products for children are, there are not too many. So that is, that's of course is a very special area. How do you determine the efficacy and safety in children who are by definition rather vulnerable patients? There are also some working groups that give advice to all these different committees. We have an SAG, which means that's the Scientific Advisory Group. So that's on scientific issues. We have the CTFG, that's the Clinical Trial Facilitation Group, and the SAWP, the Scientific Advisory Working Party. So they work for the different committees. So the committees do the work, and they come up with an assessment, and then it is the EMA that makes a decision. So let's go to the next slide, please. Yes, this is something new. Formerly, the evaluations and the decisions were only taken on data that were supplied by the registration holder, by the pharmaceutical company. But since 2017, it is also possible for to have public hearings. So patients, for instance, can also give their views, their ideas on products on the market. This is only for PRAC, so that is for the pharmacovigilance for the product on the market. But it is new that it's not only the information from pharmaceutical companies, but also information from patient organizations or individual patients that can be helpful. Of course, these are hearings that will usually take place in one of the meeting rooms in Amsterdam. But since early last year, these hearings were only done by Zoom or MS Teams, obviously. Hopefully later on we will have these physical meetings again. Let's go to the next slide, please. Yeah, so an IMP registration, again, IMP means investigational medicinal product, is based on a directive. So it is not a regulation, it's a directive, which means that all member states have to translate the rules set out in these in this directive into their own local national laws. We call it the Medicinal Products Directive, and as you can see, it is relatively old. 2001 it was published, so 20 years ago. There are some addenda, some newer directives, but the 2001 directives is still valid. It is the official title, is it? The Directive 2001/83 EC of the European. Excuse me? Okay, can I continue? Yeah. Okay, so of the European Parliament and of the Council of 6 November 2001 on the Community Code relating to medicinal products for human use. It's 188 pages, and it describes what is needed for registration of a new medicinal product. So that is the basis for the registration of pharmaceutical products in Europe. Let's go to the next slide, please. So the marketing authorization application, so that is the data that the company needs to provide in order to receive this marketing authorization. So this is the application, and that means the data that will be assessed by the CHMP in order to come to a conclusion, is the product safe and effective? The basis for this is what we call the CTD. The CTD means the Common Technical Document. And this is a document that was described by ICH. ICH is the International Council for Harmonization. It's international, it's not only for Europe, it's international. And it also is applicable to the United States, to FDA. So the Common Technical Document is a document that can be used both for registration in Europe as well as in United States, Japan, Canada, India, etc., etc. It consists of 5 modules. It is a standardized format. You can provide it in electronic form. There is, of course, an administration information, which states who the market owner is, the company name, address, things like that. But it also includes the SMPC, the summary of the product characteristics. We'll come to that. It will give overviews and summaries. It will discuss the product quality, so that has to do with GMP, but also with the analytical quality of the product itself. What is the quality level of the product? It will assess non-clinical data as well as clinical data. So non-clinical data not in humans, clinical data in human beings. Non-clinical data, for instance, safety data in animals. Next slide, please. So this is the common technical document. This is the description of the common technical document, and there are different modules. The module 1, that's the top end of this pyramid, is officially not part of the CTD, but that's the administrative information. Then we have module 2. These are the summaries. So the pharmaceutical company has to describe summaries of all the data presented. And the individual data, they have to be provided in module 3, 4, and 5. So module 3 is the product quality, module 4 the non-clinical data, and module 5 is the clinical data. And that the total of all these data is what we call the common technical document. Let's go to the next slide, please. So the SMPC, that's a very important summarizing document. It's also called SPC. It's the summary of product characteristics, SPC, or sometimes called summary of medicinal product characteristic, SMPC. It is exactly the same. That is a total description in medical terms, so it is to be used by medical peers on what the product is. It's the basis for the package insert. So what are the indications? What are the safety levels? How often do side effects occur, etc.? And that's the package insert. Package insert is for doctors. And the patient information leaflet is a lay summary of the package inserts, and that's what we call the PIL, the patient information leaflet. So that is the description of the product in lay terms, so that the patient can also understand it. The summary of the product characteristics is also the basis for the labels, yeah, and it determines indications as well as dosing. So you can imagine that the SPC is a very important document, and it is the total summary of all the data that have been gathered during the development of the product. It is part of the documentation that the CHMP is going to assess. Next slide, please. Yeah, so the decision after the assessment of the CHMP is based on a balance, a favorable balance between the risks and the benefits. Benefits means the product works, efficacy, but that has to be balanced with the risk. You can imagine that for an anti-cancer drug, it is, to a certain extent acceptable that there are side effects which are, for instance, not acceptable when you talk about a simple analgesic. Most anti-cancer drugs have as a side effect an emetic effect. Vomiting is a side effect of lots of anti-cancer drugs, and you would not allow that, for instance, in a simple analgesic, or for instance in a COVID vaccine. For a COVID vaccine, there are some emesis of diarrhea would be totally unacceptable. So that balance is particularly important, and it is always a matter of the balance. The efficacy must be substantiated, so it must have been proven in clinical trials that the product works in certain cohorts of patients for certain indication areas. And the qualitative and quantitative composition is as declared. And if the decision is favorable, then the pharmaceutical company will get an MA, a market authorization. There is, however, one snag, and that is that there is also a sunset clause. If you get a market authorization, but you do not start marketing the product in any of the countries in the European Union within 3 years, the market authorization is withdrawn. So you cannot wait endlessly before bringing the product to the market. It has to be done within 3 years. Again, the basis of the decision is on safety and efficacy, as well as on product quality. So that implies that there are no considerations on medical need. If a company decides to register a product that is for instance, for blood pressure, and there are something, well over 100 products against blood pressure, then so be it. The CHMP is not interested in that. Another thing is there are no price considerations. So the price usually is determined after the registration, when the product starts being marketed, but the CHMP is not involved in price consideration. So can you get me the next slide? Yes, we dealt with that. So next one, please. Thank you. So we now discussed what is needed for type of information. In the European Union, there are 3 different registration procedures, and most of them can be decided by the pharmaceutical company. Not all of them, because there are some factors that may determine a certain procedure. So, for instance, the centralized procedure is compulsory for biotechnological products, orphan drugs, specific indication like AIDS, Alzheimer, diabetes, autoimmune and viral diseases. For instance, COVID vaccines had to be and still have to be registered according to the centralized procedure. Centralized means through EMA. There are also other types of procedures that can be done locally in the different member states separately. We call these the mutual recognition procedure, MRP, or the decentralized procedure. I will come to that later on. So the centralized procedure is for the newer products, biotechnological products, or products for an unmet medical need like AIDS, Alzheimer, diabetes, etc. and the other ones are, for instance, for generic products, or when a company is only interested in one of the member states, not in all of them, but just one. Yeah, so a local Portuguese company that wants to bring a product on the market only in Portugal is not going for the centralized procedure, but for a different one of the two other procedures. So let's go to the next slide, please. So the centralized procedure is applicable to all member states in the European Union. And the basis for the decision is what we call an EPAR, an APAR, European Public Assessment Report. And that is a report made by this committee, the CHMP, based on all the data that have been collected and that have been provided to the CHMP. And this APAR is the basis for the decision by EMA whether or not to bring the product on the market. There is a maximum term for this committee to assess, and that's 210 days, excluding clock stops. Excluding clock stops means that if they have a question, or if they have several questions, they ask these questions in writing to the company owning the product. And at the moment that they have done that, their assessment period stops. And only when the answers have been given, then the assessment period continues. So it is 210 days, excluding clock stops. The decision-making terms by the EMA is another 67 days maximum. However, there are possibilities for accelerated review. An applicant, the pharmaceutical company, can ask for an accelerated review, for instance, if there is an unmet medical need or there is an emergency situation. Then it is not 210 days, but maximum 150 days, which still is nearly half a year. So it's quite long. And in exceptional emergency situation, it can be even faster. And that was the case with the COVID vaccines. Then we have a rolling review. Like I said, a rolling review means that as soon as the data from the first clinical trials become available, they will be provided to the CHMP, and the CHMP will then already start evaluating, rather than wait until all clinical trials have been done, collect all data together, and then present it to the CHMP. So it can be faster, but a standard centralized procedure is 210 days maximum plus 67 days. So let's say 300 days maximum before you will get your go ahead. Yeah, so that's still quite a long period, but at least you know what it is. Yeah, so it cannot be taken indefinitely. Yeah, of course, a clock stop. During the clock stop, if you as a pharmaceutical company work hard and present the requested data as soon as possible, the clock stop is of course as short as possible. So you have some possibility there. One example, there was one product that was the Sputnik COVID vaccine. It was presented to the EMA, and there were questions. Yeah, and the Russian owners of the product were not able to answer these questions. So it dragged on and on and on, and that's, now the EMA has said before we have these data, we will not continue assessing this product any further. So the Sputnik product is not on the market in United or in the European Union. Having said that, there were some countries like Slovakia and Hungary that approved the products locally, so separately. As a matter of fact, I just read this morning that the Slovakian government decided to sell back their excess of Sputnik products that they bought from Russia because they don't need them anymore. Okay, let's go to the next slide. That's the mutual recognition procedure, the MRP. So the CTD, the Common Technical Document, is reviewed by one member state, and the applicant chooses that particular member state. For instance, the company that wants to have the product available in Portugal. Yeah, we call this a reference member state, RMS. When the product is approved by this member state, so by the registration authority in that particular member state, the applicant may choose to submit it in other member states. And these are called the concerned member states. So for instance, Portugal, okay, I have my registration now, but at second thought, I'd like to register it in Spain as well. So then Spain will become a concerned member state. The concerned member state has the possibility to comment, to suggest alterations in the SMPC, in the pill, in the package insert. They have to check translations from Portuguese into Spanish, etc., etc. The post-marketing will be handled by Portugal, by the reference member state. So if there are safety issues also in Spain, then the Portuguese authorities will handle that. It was used for products already on the market. And you can see that the duration in order to get the registration is relatively long, 420 days. Next slide, please. The decentralized procedure is particularly for generic products, except for biosimilar generic products. In this particular case, the Portuguese company already knows at the start that they will need approval in other countries like Spain, Italy, etc. Also, and they will then present the data to the reference member state. The reference member state will prepare an evaluation report, but the concerned member states, the CMS, will have a look at it. And they can only object if there is a major concern for public health. So that means that it goes much faster than the mutual recognition period. And I think that the mutual recognition period procedure is something that is not going to be used very often anymore. So it will be the centralized procedure or the decentralized procedure. These will be the procedures of choice to register a product. Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. Right. 420 days is a long period, and even if you have a centralized procedure, 150 days, 210 days, it's still quite long. This was a report for the Institute for Cancer Research, ICR, which is a UK organization that looked into the approval of cancer products. And they found that in 2000 to 2008, per year, approximately 7.5 approvals occurred. And in 2009 to 2016, about twice as many, 14.6. So that actually is good. There were more products that were registered for cancer or for special cancer indications. However, the time from phase 1, that is the phase that when we start the product in the trials in humans, to the license, to the authorization, went up from 7.8 years to 9.1 years. So that's the total duration of the clinical trial phase. And that's quite long. Yeah, and that is a thing that we should be concerned about. Again, with respect to the COVID, we have shown that it can be faster, but of course, the red tape and bureaucracy, so the excessive regulation, paperwork, procedure, rules, etc., is something that we should try to accommodate as good as possible. Pediatric therapies, there were only 8 pediatric therapies approved in the period from 2000 to 2016, and that is something of concern as well. So this is something we should do about it, and that's one of the concerns for EMA as well. Okay, next slide, please. I think we had that one. Yeah, other. Could you go to the other one? Yes, that one, yes. Orphan medicinal product. An orphan medicinal product is a product against an orphan disease. And an orphan disease is a rare disease occurring not very often. The definition is less than 5 patients in 10,000 patients across the EU. So you look at the total EU, sometimes you could imagine that in a certain area this disease occurs more often than in other areas, but across the EU, less than 5 patients in 10,000. So then we call it a rare disease or an orphan disease. And of course, you can imagine that if there are so few patients, it may not be attractive for a pharmaceutical company to develop a product for so few patients. Yeah, so there have become regulations and help from EMA, but also from, for instance, the FDA, to in order to facilitate the development of such products. Yeah. Orphan medicinal products should have a significant benefit over existing treatment. For instance, if you have a disease like ALS that doesn't occur very often, but there is no treatment at all. Yeah, and then a significant benefit over existing treatment is very easy to apply. Yeah. It is the COMP, so it's a special committee that deals with it, and a company seeking a registration for an orphan medicinal product will get all sorts of benefits. They will get assistance from EMA with respect to the protocol, clinical trial protocol, but also regulatory assistance. They will get tax incentives, and they will get 10 years market exclusivity. They will have access to the centralized procedure. So these orphan medicinal products can only be registered through the centralized procedure. So an orphan medicinal product is a product for rare diseases. However, there are many rare diseases. It has been calculated that there are in Europe only 30 million patients having an OD, different orphan diseases, but there are very many of such diseases that occur only in few patients. Okay, next slide, please. Yeah, so what happens with these orphan drugs? The average price of orphan drugs has surged. So pharmaceutical company that has registered a product then has 10 years of market exclusivity. That's quite a long time. And they can determine the price, actually, whatever price they want. Yeah. So a price of a few million of euros per year per patient is no exception. Yeah. And so even if you have a product for only a few patients, because of this high price, it can still be a very profitable business. And that, of course, is a concern for health insurance companies and for the member states who have to pay for all this. Yeah, the investment costs have gone down through the use of surrogate endpoints. For instance, suppose you have a product that may have an effect on ALS. ALS is a killing disease. Yeah, if you don't do anything, and at the moment we can't do anything, you know that in a few years the patient will die. Now the endpoint is, of course, death. If you can prove that your product prevents death, that is, of course, the proof of the pudding. Then you have you can make sure that your product is effective. But it is not ethical to wait until patients have died. So they look for surrogate endpoints. For instance, enzyme concentrations in the blood or something like that. And if the enzyme concentration, ALS is a product that well, there's a defect in an enzyme concentration in the blood. So if you have that enzyme concentration then increases, you can say, okay, it works. Yeah, but that is what we call a surrogate endpoint. Another example of a surrogate endpoint is, for instance, blood pressure. Blood pressure as such is not killing. But if you have a persistent high blood pressure, it can lead to strokes and it can lead to death. So a product against blood pressure is usually measured against the blood pressure as measured in patients, and it would be unethical to wait until a certain percentage of the patients have received a stroke. Salami slicing means that you start with a small subgroup, so you have an orphan drug, and it is only applicable to patients 40 to 60 years. And then later on you say, no, it can now also work for patients from 30 to 40 years, from 20 to 30 years, older patients above 60. And so that's what we call salami techniques. Any time that you get a new approval, your market exclusivity term starts all over again, the 10 years. Generic competition is often not a great threat. So the market exclusivity really means that you have the market for this particular product at an extremely high price for a very long period. And the number of orphan diseases is huge, like 7,000 or so. Like I said before, there are many patients with an orphan disease, although the number of patients with a specific orphan disease is relatively small. Okay, next slide, please. So what can you do about that? For instance, one of the possibilities is to give only tax incentives and not the combination of tax incentives and market exclusivity. Now, at the moment, companies get both. They get tax incentives and they get a market exclusivity. And the question is that reasonable, given also the fact that the development costs are relatively high and the prices for the products on the market can be extremely high. Yeah, it's also possible to have a clawback. A clawback means that if the annual sales will exceed a certain maximum, in Japan they do it, for instance, above 100 million yen, then the price has to be reduced. And that seems fair because the high price is only there because of the fact that there are so few patients. Yeah. And some form of price regulation is also a possibility, of course. So far, these suggestions have not taken place to a large extent. But it is an issue. It is it's a sort of concern, and we have to deal with it. Next page, please. Okay, let's go to the post-marketing safety assessment. Post-marketing means after the registration. Actually, it's a bit of a strange word. Post-marketing should be actually after marketing. Post is after, it's Latin. So post-marketing is after market. So when the product is taken from the market, that's what actually post-marketing is. But the general definition of post-marketing is after registration. So it should actually be post-authorization or something like that. What we mean is safety assessment of products that are on the market. We call it post-marketing surveillance or PMS. We also call it pharmacovigilance. So we have to be vigilant about the pharmaceutical products on the market. And the definition is here: the science and activities relating to the detection, assessment, understanding and prevention of adverse events or any other medicine-related problem. Pharmacovigilance is an activity contributing to the protection of patients and public health. And again, it can mean that the summary of product characteristics has to be adapted, or that the doses has to be adapted, etc. There are regulations as well as directive that apply to what has to be done in this respect. But again, once the product is on the market, once a pharmaceutical company has their market authorization, they're not done, but they have to continue collecting data, real world data, yeah, in order to assess the safety of the product. And for instance, rare side effects can be detected by means of this. We call these adverse events, because an adverse event can mean any event that is not pleasing, that is not likely. That is what adverse event is, what we also call side effects. But a side effect is, for a side effect, there must be a definite relationship between the drug product and the event. So let's go to the next slide, please. Yeah, the goal of pharmacovigilance is to reduce harm when using the medicinal products by promoting more appropriate use. So those adaptations or special precautions, etc., etc. So the assessment of the impact of pharmacovigilance by regulators is currently under investigated. There's still a lot to be done. And that is something which is becoming increasingly important. In the Netherlands, there is a company or an organization, I should say, independent of EMA, independent of the Dutch registration authorities, that is specifically geared to doing this kind of work. It's called LAREP, which means the regional bureau of for collecting side effects. But in other member states, it is combined with the registration authorities themselves. So let's go to the next slide. Yeah, it is still more national orientated. So the national member states, they take care of the collection of these data. And it involves ADRs, adverse drug reactions, as well as medication errors. It can also be medication errors. So if for one reason or another an excess dosing is prescribed, then the effects of that, if the patient would have certain side effects, then this is also something that will be assessed. It will also, for instance, be the use outside the market authorization. The market authorization is for specific indication areas, and if these indication, if a doctor decides to prescribe it for something else, another indication, that is his prerogative, he can do that. But of course, if there are safety issues then okay, that has to be registered as well. We call these suspected adverse reactions, SARs. And a pharmaceutical company needs to provide the EMA with a risk management plan. The EMA, in particular the PRAC, the committee dealing with pharmacovigilance. And these will involve PASS, P-A-S-S, post-authorization safety studies. So that is looking into the safety issues, the side effects, and PAES, post-authorization efficacy studies. For instance, you get a registration for the use in certain indication areas for patients up to 60 years, and then a PAES could be done for patients above 60 years. And you want to show that the product is also active, will work in older patients, in senior patients, or in vulnerable patients, children, for instance. The RMP and the results of the RMP will be assessed by the PRAC. Thank you. Next stage, please. Yeah. So pharmacovigilance, the data for pharmacovigilance have to be provided into the what we call UDRA vigilance. The UDRA vigilance is the European Union Drug Regulatory Authorities pharmacovigilance database. It's a long word, but all data, all safety data on products, drug products on the market have to be collected in this database. The database is not available to the public. It's only to the pharmaceutical companies and the registration authorities. But it is, of course, a total collection of all the data. In the USA, we call it MedWatch. That's the American equivalent. The inverted black triangle that you see here is a regulations that is according to regulation. If the product is new on the market, then the inverted black triangle has to be given in the package insert. And it means that the product is subject to additional safety monitoring. Yeah. So if you see such an inverted black triangle, it means that the product is still being assessed by the PRAC. And you can imagine that, for instance, an aspirin product does not have a black triangle anymore, or other products that have been on the market for a very long time. Next slide, please. Yeah. So Vigilance is the European Union Drug Regulatory Pharmacovigilance Database. It consists of two modules: the clinical trial module, the EVCTM, that's a safety data from clinical studies, and the post-market, and that is the data from the real world. Yeah. So clinical studies are carried out by the authorization holder. These data are collected by the authorization holder, but the real world data, are in a different module. So all these data for products on the market have to be collected in the Vigilance. Next slide, please. Yeah. So we have, of course, like we have good manufacturing practice, good laboratory practice, good clinical practice, we also have good pharmacovigilance practice. What does it mean? There must be a quality management system. The pharmaceutical company should have that. The safety data have to be collected. Post-authorization safety studies have to be carried out. There must be a system to detect signals. So if patients have a side effect, and that side effect is, or a presumed side effect, I should also say, a signal, then the pharmaceutical company has to have a system that is able to assess these signals, to collect all the signals together, so that it can be determined what the effects of these will be. There should be a proactive reporting in Vigilance in the database and to what we call the competent authorities, the CAs. Competent authorities are the regulatory authorities in the different member states. And companies are required to come up with reports on a periodic basis, periodic safety updates report, PSURs. Yeah. So every year, for instance, depends on how what safety issues are expected. It can be every year, it can be every 6 months. Then such reports have to be collected, have to be written, and have to be supplied to the PRAC. So that's what good pharmacovigilance practices is about. Next slide, please. So the pharmacovigilance is the responsibility of the authorization holder, of the pharmaceutical company. And the question is actually, is that good or is that bad? Should not it be transferred to the regulators themselves, so that the regulators do it? That is not the case right now. Yeah. And that is an ethical issue. Can you ask from a company that has a business module that wants to make profit? Yeah. Can you ask from them to do studies that may come to a conclusion that the product should be limited in use, for instance, or that the dosage should be different, or that it should be taken from the market, for instance? Because taking products from the market is something that can happen quite often. Can I get the next slide, please? Here is a list of products that were taken from the market from the 1960s to 2000s, and you can see it's quite a long list. Yeah, thalidomide, Softenon is a well-known example. Des is a well-known example, but there are also products that have been on the market for a very short time and that have not been so well known, and still this happened. So we're talking about products that were registered because of the registration data, the clinical data that looked good enough, yeah, in order to bring the product to the market. And then when the real world data came, there were still all sorts of side effects which were so so grave, you could say, or so less rare that it was decided to take the product from the market. This is from the 40 years in the last century. If I get the next slide, please. Here are some products, and you see it's a long list as well, from products taken from the market in only 10 years, from 2000 to 2010. Yeah. As a matter of fact, the list of products taken from the market in 2010 to 2020 is just a bit shorter, but it still happens. Yeah. So here again, a long list of products that were taken from the market after registration, and the list grows longer. Next slide, please. The list grows longer, so it is a real issue, and that's why pharmacovigilance is such an important activity. And you cannot simply say, okay, now the product is on the market, and from now on everyone is happy and we're living a long term afterwards. No, on the contrary, you have to be very vigilant as well. Next slide, please. Okay, so let's go to clinical trials. So this is the, we're now going to not to the registration of the product, but to what needs to be done in order to start a clinical trial. And like I said before, a clinical trial is governed by a new regulation. The clinical trial regulation, the ECTR, is a regulation issued in 2014 and starting in 2022. Before that, you had a clinical trial directive, but now you have a regulation, which means it supersedes natural law. And here's the definition of GCP, good clinical practices, a set of internationally recognized ethical and scientific quality requirements, which must be observed for designing, conducting, recording, and reporting clinical trials that involve the participation of human subjects. That's the definition of a clinical trial. It involves the participation of human subjects. And these can be patients, people who are ill and who benefit from the use, or they can be they can be participants who are not ill, volunteers, yeah, healthy volunteers. Compliance with these good practices provides assurance that the rights, safety, and well-being of trial subjects are protected and that the results of clinical trials are credible. So that's what it's all about. The rights, safety, and well-being of the trial subjects, they should be protected, and that apart from that, the results should be such that we can draw conclusions from that. They should be credible. So that's the definition of GCP. Next slide, please. So for starting a clinical trial, you need to have a CTA, a clinical trial authorization. And in Europe, there are several guidances. Again, a guidance is something that is not mandatory, but of course it does help you to decide how your protocol should look like. And we have a CT1, a clinical trial guidance number 1, and that is for competent authorities. So that is for the information you need to supply to the regulatory bodies. And you have a CT2, which is a document for the ethics committee. The ethics committee is the committee in, for instance, the hospital that gives the go-ahead and is only interested in the safety of the patients that will enter the study in that particular hospital. We call that an EC, an ethics committee. I means independent. So, of course, so they have to be independent from the pharmaceutical company. So a pharmaceutical company wanting to start a clinical trial has to provide two sets of data, one for the regulatory authorities and one for the ethics committees. All these informations have to be, sorry, can you go back please to the former, no, the other one? Yeah, no, yeah, the other one? Yeah, okay. All this information has to be provided in one database. So it's done electronically, and that is the UDRACT, the European clinical trial database. Yeah, and that is a register that includes the protocols for the clinical trials, as well as those data that will be made publicly available. So a summary of the data will be publicly available, also for the lay public. The authorization of clinical trials is done on the member state level. So it is not done by EMA centrally, it's done on the member state level. So can you go to the next slide, please? So here you see what is needed for the registration authorities. Of course, you have to have a number, there must be a cover letter, a special application form, but also the protocol. How is the study to be done? Right? How is the study to be designed? There must be an investigator's brochure, and that means a collection of all the data that we know at the moment with respect to the safety and efficacy of the particular product. And if you start with the first clinical trial, then you only have data in animals, for instance. But that information is still being needed to be collected, because an investigator, a doctor, has to decide, is this a product that I allow my participants, my patients, to be given to? Yeah. So that's what we call an investigator's brochure. Then there has to be an investigational medicinal product dossier. So that is the product on the quality, on GMP, on how the labels look like, etc., etc. There also has to be information on what we call NIMPs. NIMPs are non-investigational medicinal products. For instance, what we call concomitant medication, symptom relief. I was talking about a product against cancer. One of the side effects of cancer products can be vomiting. Now, if you give the patient a product against vomiting, standard product, which is already on the market, an anti-emetic product, that product is not being tested. This is not part of the investigation. But it is helpful for the patients for accepting the product. So that's what we call an NIMP, a non-investigational medicinal product. There must be additional documents, for instance, a copy of the opinion or the decision of the ethics committee. Is the ethics committee saying yes, is the ethics committee giving approval to the product, labeling, etc., etc. And of course, it will also include what we call substantial amendments to the protocol. So if something changes in the protocol during the course of the trial, that's what we call a substantial amendment. Non-substantial amendments do not need to be documented and do not need to be given to the regulatory authorities, but a lot of data are indeed substantial. For instance, the changing of a telephone number or mail address is non-substantial, but if it is decided to have a new hospital somewhere in the world, for which this protocol will also be done. Yeah, so you have a clinical trial being carried out in a couple of hospitals in Europe, and then the company decides, okay, we're also going to do a study in India. Yeah, that particular information, which hospital, etc., is a substantial amendment and has to be given to the registration authorities. Next slide, please. If you start with a registration, then we call it a first in man a first in man trial. So if you start with the trial for the first time in man, you need to have a first in man trial, and that again also requires the sponsor to define the uncertainty and to address potential risk. What you see now is that the protocols for these guidelines are becoming increasingly complex. It's not just a matter of, okay, we add it to a few healthy volunteers and that's it. No, we have single dosing, multiple dosing, increasing doses, food interaction, different age groups, etc., etc. Special reference is given to the calculation of the starting dose. How do you determine the starting dose? Dose escalation, so increasing of doses, and the criteria for maximum dose, when you stop, because the dose is becoming unsafe, you will have adverse events, etc. Yeah, and there must be guiding on stopping criteria and rolling review. Okay, next slide, please. So the regulation, the aim of the regulation is to simplify and speed up clinical research with medicinal products in the EU, which should lead to earlier availability of medicinal treatments for patients, and B, to keep the EU attractive for clinical research sponsors. Yeah. In the Netherlands, for instance, the ECTR will lead to a reduction in the number of ethics committees from 27 at the moment to 12. That's one of the effects. Yeah. Next slide, please. Yeah. So here are the main contexts. The assessment procedures, including the maximum assessment terms. I will not go into these terms, but they are very fixed. So it is exactly known how long will it take for a registration authority to give a yes or no. How long will it take for ethics committee, etc. The dossier submission will be centralized and it will be digital. Yeah. Safety reporting procedures should be per product instead of per study, and one membership will become responsible for that. All in order to combine things as much as possible to make it easier and more logical to have such registrations. Sponsor will have to report SUSARs, that is suspected, unexpected, serious adverse reaction, directly into the database, and the trial results must be published. So it's quite a lot of aspects that are being dealt with. Next stage, please. Not all studies fall under the ECTR. I will not go into, because of the time, I will not go into all the information here, but if there is no medical objective, then a study does not fall under the ECTR. Studies with devices, medical devices, or food do fall under the regulation if the aim is related to disease and health, and if the patients are subjected to interventions or prescriptions. Yeah. So, for instance, if there is a simple questionnaire, and that is something that does not fall under the ECTR, so you do not need to seek an approval by an EC for that. Yeah. Okay. Next slide, please. An important aspect is, of course, the privacy of the participants. In the European Union, you now also have what we call GDPR, a general data protection regulation, and that describes what is needed for privacy. And the ECTR and the GDPR are complementary, you should say. But on the other hand, there are some aspects of privacy that are not allowed under GDPR, but that are allowed under ECTR. For instance, if you are a participant and you are participating in a trial, and during that participation you say, I want to stop, yeah, under the GDPR, you could say, I want all my data to be removed. Yeah. Under the ECDR, that is not possible. So the data collected to date will, be it in a anonymous way, but can be used for registration. Yeah, that's a very important exception to the general GDPR rule. And it is, of course, obvious that this is because otherwise, all these data have to be taken out, and you never know what information is then available. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. Yeah, compassionate use is something that is done for specific groups of patients. If they have been in a trial and they have benefited from that particular trial, usually as soon as the trial ends, the administration of the drug product will stop. Yeah. But in certain instances, if there is no other medication available, then in that particular case, the patients can continue using that particular product, yeah, although it is not yet registered. Yeah, so this is for groups of patients, and the question then is, who pays for that? Usually it's a pharmaceutical company, and the pharmaceutical companies do not very much like this thing, but sometimes they cannot avoid it completely. So what happens if then afterwards, in a second study, it is meant that it is found that there are so many side effects that the development has to be stopped completely? Yeah, what happens then? Well, in that particular case, the product will be taken from will be taken also from these patients, and they don't like that, of course, because these particular patients seem to benefit, although the product has not been registered yet. So that's what we call compassionate use, or in the United States, expanded access. Okay, next slide, please. So I will go now for shortly to ICH. ICH is a combination of worldwide registration authorities and pharmaceutical companies. It's a council for harmonization. So they work together in order to try to harmonize the development requirements. It's an international standard for originally the European Union, United States and Japan, and in 2015 Canada and Switzerland were also became members. But for instance, India is not an official member, but they are included in the discussions. Yeah, it is the basis for the registration dossier. So the CTD is something that was developed by ICH in a combination of the pharmaceutical companies and the registration authorities. A total set of rules conditional for the quality, efficiency, and safety of products and trials. Next slide, please. The mission is to achieve greater harmonization worldwide, yeah, so that products are developed and registered in the most resource efficient, cost efficient manner. And this is achieved through the development of guidelines. So it is not regulations, it's guidelines, but everyone complies with these guidelines. Yeah, consensus between regulatory and industry experts. Next slide, please. So what are the goals? Harmonization, a dialogue platform between regulators and the industry. It goes on public health and patient protection. Yeah, it means that the data of the development are mutually accepted. So data collected in Europe will also be accepted in India, United States, Japan, etc., etc. So that means avoid duplication of research. Yeah, and avoiding duplication of research is something that is, of course, very cost effective. You don't have to do it again. Yeah. It is also an implementation of standards, and there is a development of a dictionary. Like I said before, a dictionary, so all the abbreviations, the definitions, etc., is an important part of the development phases, and we call that MEDRA, and MEDRA means the Medical Drug Dictionary. Next slide, please. So it is an international council for harmonization, and there are different chapters. For us, E is the most important one, that is efficacy, so that's clinical trials, yeah, mainly E6, but there's also something on quality, on impurities, risk management, stability, etc., etc. Safety, the preclinical, and there's also a miscellaneous, and that has to do with the CTD, the Common Technical Document. Let's go to ICHE, next one. So here you see all the efficacy guidelines. E1 deals with safety of drug. You can find them on the internet. The texts are and very readable also. My problem with regulations, for instance, the regulations in the United States, or also the regulations for registration in Europe, are that they are often quite difficult to read. 188 pages in Europe is nothing, but the ICH is very readable, very understandable. The most important one for clinical trials is E6, the good clinical practices. Next one, please. So here is what E6 is about, a glossary of terms, so again, definitions, the principles, then something about the ethics committee, independent ethics committee. In the United States, an ethics committee is called an IRB, institutional review board, but essentially it's the same. Then what is the requirements on the investigator, the doctor, on the sponsor, the company that owns the product, that pays for the development, the protocol amendments, the investigator's brochure, and what we call essential documents. So the documents that need to be collected and which we call essential and that have to be supplied to the registration authorities. Okay, next one, please. There will be a new revision, and that will be called E6R3. That will replace E6R2, obviously. So we now have R3. It's under discussion. We do not know yet when it will start. They say it will be 2022. I'm not sure about that. And it will incorporate different trial designs. So new trials like pragmatic trials, decentralized trials will also be included. And that is not the case yet. And how to make use of the real world data on pharmacovigilance, for instance, on post authorization safety studies. So these are the specific topics that will be dealt with in the R3. Okay, next one, please. Yeah, just a little bit on FDA. FDA in the United States is part of the Department of Health and Social Security. There is one office, one organization that deals with everything on food and drugs in the United States, and that's the Food and Drug Administration. In Europe, you also have the different member states registration authorities. That is not the case in United States. I said before, actually, United States is a bit easier than Europe, and that's for sure, because you have just one type of documents that you can deal with, and you don't have to bother about member states. So it's the same principles as EMA, but the way it is worked out is a little bit different, and there's just one body. We have a Center for Drug Evaluation, a Center for Devices, and a Center for Biologicals. So like we have in Europe, we have the PROC and the CHMP, etc. Here we have different centers. Next slide, please. Yeah. FDA actually is still leading. So if there are guidelines from the United States, then Europe will certainly look at them quite quite intensely. And that means that sometimes they will use as a starting point for guidelines in Europe as well. They are more market oriented than the EMA. For instance, patient benefits for drugs that are not on the market, like unmet marketing needs, etc., are more important than in Europe. Yeah. In the United States, we have what we call codes of federal regulations, and these are the regulations. So we have the CFR 50 that's on protection of human subjects, the CFR 54 on financial disclosure. You can imagine that a doctor carrying out a study should not have a financial interest in the outcome of the study. CFR 56 is on the ethics committee, the IRBs, additional regulations, medical devices, etc. There's more room for communication than with EMA. So it is easier to get access to certain people within FDA and discuss what needs to be done, etc., etc. What is interesting in the United States is that it is possible to have DTC advertising, direct to consumer advertising. So a product under prescription can still be advertised on local TV, for instance, and that is not allowed in Europe. Okay, next one, please. Yeah. So the authority is based on laws and regulation, Code of Federal Regulation. It's an emphasis on products, and the aim is, of course, customer protection. In 1906, it started with what we call Food and Drug Acts, and in 1938 there came the so-called Food, Drugs and Cosmetic Acts, the FDC Act. That was after a disaster, something went wrong. There was a product on the market that led to a lot of death in children, and the FDA at that time did not have the possibility to keep the product from the market. So that after 1938 that was restored, and now it is possible to do such a thing like that. Next slide, please. So there are two types of application. An IND is an investigational new drug, so that is for the clinical trials, and an NDA is for the approval for marketing. Yeah, that's based on the CTD, like in Europe, and the review time is approximately 24 months, except for emergency situations like the COVID vaccine. Then it goes, of course, much quicker in the United States as well. Next slide, please. There are types of collaboration. For instance, an important factor in the collaboration is that there is a mutual recognition of GMP inspections, mutual recognition of GCP inspection, so that if you have a GMP inspection of a pharmaceutical production facility here in the Netherlands, for instance, that can be inspected by the Dutch authorities. But it would be rather redundant if there would be a group of inspectors from the United States coming over to the Netherlands and to do everything all over again. So if you would have a mutual recognition, that would certainly be helpful. Of course, there is also a regulatory collaboration with respect to difficult therapies like gene therapies, cell therapies, etc., etc. Streamlining scientific requirements for approval of generic products, and an information exchange on, for instance, real-world evidence, how to deal with that. Real-world evidence is really an issue for the moment, as you can imagine, because it is becoming more important all the time. Next slide, please. So just a little bit on Japan. In Japan, we have the PMDA, Pharmaceuticals and Medical Devices Agency, that is part of the Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare. And there is a law in Japan as well, the Pharmaceutical Affairs Law, that determines and that describes how registration in Japan has to be done. One of the things still there is that if you seek registration for a pharmaceutical product in Japan, you need to have data from Japanese subjects also. And that is a thing that hampered, for instance, the registration of COVID vaccines in Japan, because they had a requirement that there should also be Japanese patients in clinical trials. Yeah, and that's why you can see now that the level of vaccination in Japan is still relatively low, which at the moment is a certain issue with respect to the upcoming Olympic Games. But that has to do with the fact that there is a registration requirement that Japanese subjects are still needed during clinical trials in Japan. Oh, okay, let's go to the next slide, please. Yeah, okay. Now I've said a lot of things. And for the next 15-20 minutes, I'd like you to work a little bit. So unfortunately, in this Zoom meeting, I cannot see what your answers are going to be. But perhaps one of your tutors can give an indication. So I have a few multiple choice questions, and I'd like you to go through them and then give the best possible answer. I'm not saying there's only one answer which is completely right and the rest is rubbish. Sometimes the answers are a little bit right, but there always is one best answer. So let's go to number one.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing this global regulatory information. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I hope that you can share your answers with me now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Before that, sir, we need your kind support in the unique weekend DRS certificate course, which is designed in MIT WPO, World Peace University, in the future.
Okay. Okay, that's no problem. Yeah, sure.
Yes, sir. Yeah, sir, we have a question from Sanket Arole.
Oh, yeah, I did see that. So if there are any questions, perhaps we can answer them right now. And maybe these questions are also a few of the ones that I'm going to ask you in my multiple choice. But okay, let's see. What is the question?
It is related to packaging and labeling in EU, European Union.
Yes.
On any pharmaceutical package or label, there's one blue box.
What do you mean? Blue box? What do you mean, blue box?
So what does that mean? He is asking that question. What is the meaning of blue box?
I don't know. I haven't heard that term before, as a matter of fact.
Hello,
what
Sanket,
I do know,
online, Sanket Arole.
Sanket, can you unmute yourself and you can ask? Just a minute. I'll mute. Yeah, you can now unmute yourself and you can ask, please. I'll enable you, Sanket.
Hello.
Yes, Sanket.
Sir, the question is regarding the regulatory considerations for the labeling and packaging. So, in that, so packaging or the labeling, there's one blue box, or it contains something one number, sir, which is around I think 9 to 13 numbers. And so I don't know what does that mean actually, what that blue box actually means.
Yeah.
Is it any national requirement by member states of EU?
Of course, the labeling has to be different in every member state. You have to translate it into the different languages, I'm not aware of any blue box in the Netherlands. No, I'm not aware of that. So maybe it's something in a different country, but I don't know exactly what that means. No, I don't. I'm sorry. I have to. I can't answer that question.
Okay,
do you know in which? Do you know in which country that specifically is? I can try to find it for you, but that's just something.
No, sir, I don't know the particular country actually. But
okay, yeah.
Thank you, Sanket.
I think it is for USA. It is for USA. I think.
Yeah.
As far as my knowledge is concerned.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, thank
I
you,
don't know.
Sanket. Sir, we have some live feedbacks about your lecture. So I request Aditi Kole to give your live feedback. Aditi, please unmute yourself, start your video and give your live feedback. Yeah, Aditi.
Good afternoon, sir. I am
Yeah.
Aditi Kole from Shivaji University, studying Medical
Hello.
Information Management.
Hello.
Thank you so much, sir, for enlightening us with your great knowledge and experience. The session was very informative as we got to know about the EMA regulations, clinical trial regulations, CTT document, and ICH GCP guidelines, and other very important aspects related to it. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Aditi, for your online feedback, live feedback. Sir, we have another live feedback from Anushka S. So I request Anushka to please unmute yourself, start your video and give your live feedback. Anushka.
You are on, yeah, now.
Yeah.
Hello, am I audible, sir?
Yeah, dear.
Okay, so it was a really insightful session. It was really knowledgeable. And my sincere gratitude to Dr. Durain for making us aware about the various rules and regulations and about the various regulatory committees that are required to be taken care of for a product to be approved and finally brought into the market. And about various registration procedures in the European Union. You showed us the actual reports, the facts and figures, and you explained us with by giving various examples. So it was really great relating to the actual facts. And I'm pretty sure this session will be it will play a very great role for making us industry ready. So really, really thankful to you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I hope it will be helpful.
Yeah.
Certainly helpful, sir.
Yes. Thank you, Anushka, for your nice feedback. Doreen sir, thank you once again for joining, for sharing your international knowledge with all our students. So expecting same favor in the future. Thank you again. Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks very much indeed. Thank you.
Sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Doreen sir, for your very great, informative, and very effective session for all of us. Yeah. I hope similar cooperation in future. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. With respect to these questions, perhaps you can give them to the students and they can look for them, look for themselves. Yeah. And I'm sorry if I have been talking too long, but there is a lot to be
no, sir. You can be said
about registration.
It was pleasure listening to you, sir.
Okay.
And within this shortest period of time, we learned a lot about global regulatory market and all the details of global regulatory markets, sir. Guidelines too.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. You can continue now, sir. You can continue with your questions.
Okay.
Satish, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir.
It was a great pleasure, and I hope you will have a very nice day. Yes. And I don't know, will there be a written evaluation by all the students? If so, and it would be possible to send that information to me, I would appreciate, because I can learn from it and try to improve my next lecture even more.
Always. Namaste, sir.
Thank you.
So always,
much.
Always.
Thank you. Okay, shall I?
Yes, sir. Yes.
I shall leave.
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. See you. Thank you, sir.
Dear participant, we have certain announcement. Please don't leave the meetings. Yes, Amol sir, you can continue.
Yeah. So, dear participants, we have organized the competition on CTD.
Amol sir, can you stop sharing? Stop.
Okay. एक मिनिट सर.
नाही चालेल, काय प्रॉब्लेम. यस, ठीक आहे. खाली फक्त स्क्रीनशॉट करा, स्टॉप शेअरिंग करा.
हो.
Dear participant, we have shared the Google form of the session 1, session 2, session 3. You are supposed to fill the that form, and you have to attain that all the questions. So that is a part of assessments. I hope you have received that the quiz link on your chartboard as well as our WhatsApp group. Over to Amol sir.
Yes. Thank you so much, Satish sir. Dear participant, we have organized the competition on CTD to understand what you learned in the earlier session. It is not just to listen, because you all are interested to join PG, DRA diploma at MIT WPO. So it is again an evaluation process for all of you and us to evaluate the suitable student for this diploma too. So to brush up your knowledge, this competition is organized. For this competition, different groups are made. For this competition, different groups are made. A group of 5 students are made. The Excel sheet of groups will be communicated on WhatsApp group. So whatever the groups are made, the Excel sheet of all these groups is communicated on WhatsApp group. I'll show you one blank eCTD format first.
Yes, I'm showing, sir. I'm showing. You can talk, sir.
Yeah. So what you have to do is, somebody in the morning asked that what is the suitable qualities of regulatory affair person, just to evaluate yourself and to see your competency in this particular department. This particular sheet is made, this particular competition is organized. So this is what is the title. You have to write your group number. No name, you don't have to write your name anywhere in this answer sheet, because while evaluating, there should not be any kind of partiality in the evaluation process. A drug name is also given to you. That file also will be shared with you. For example, if your group number is 5 and in the list 5 number is given to diazepam, so you have to make a common technical document for a diazepam drug. So these are some general instructions. Fill in the necessary section as suggested in the below text. You can use following search engines for getting the data.
Yes, I'll show that form. Just a minute, sir. I'll show the entire form.
Yeah.
This is the form. You can see we have made as per the CTD model.
Yes.
So we also given the information what you're supposed to do in that form. Okay,
Yes.
even given provided different links where we can search this data.
These are the national, international links from where you can search data to make CTD. Common
this link are there. We can use that link. Yes. Certainly. Then next would be, this is the modules where so not to be done means this part you are not supposed to do.
You don't have to write about that. You just write about drug substance, add structure, chemical name, drug product, add molecular weight, CAS ID. Yes.
This you will be getting from that link. Okay. Yes. Then last, sir, this fourth module. Can you talk?
So is the table of content of the module you don't have to write, because it is again a bigger one. Study report, pharmacology. Add 1 page about pharmacology of drug, pharmacokinetic, that is absorption, distribution, metabolism, and excretion of drug. Then toxicology, again you have to write. Literature reference used in the module 4 is not necessary to write. So जहाँ जहाँ पे pink color use किया है, this particular color is used, वहाँ पे आपको you have to write and remove that particular titles also. Next, sir, please.
Yes.
Can you show next page?
Next is a module 5.
Yes, module 5. Again, table of content, no need to be done. Tabular list, no need to be done. Report of biopharmaceutic study, you have to add 2 pages at least. Then human pharmacokinetic, add 2 pages. Just a minute. Then a report of studies pertinent to pharmacokinetic, not to be done. A report of human pharmacokinetic, add 2 pages information about absorption, distribution, metabolism, and excretion. Report of human pharmacokinetic study, add 2 pages information on mechanism of action. Then clinical trial. Then report of post-marketing experience, add 1 page information on post-marketing studies also. So next, please.
Yes. This is the last one, sir.
Yes, sir. So these all are 6 pages for you for the assignment. Is not at all assignment actually. जो आपने morning में 2 lectures में सुना है, just to evaluate yourself to understand all these concepts, so we can call it as oral and written communication. At the end of the day, we expect that you all should learn each and everything about this particular all the talks. So this is again a table. For example, if you are in a group 6, अगर आप ग्रुप 6 में हो तो आपके ग्रुप में कौन है वो एक्सेल शीट आपको मिलेगा, आपको रामीप्रिल पे सीटीडी बनाना पड़ेगा. इट मे हैपन लाइक आपके ग्रुप के 3 स्टूडेंट आज अब्सेंट होंगे और उन्होंने ज्वाइन नहीं किया होगा, तो बाकी के जो 2 स्टूडेंट है उनको ये बनाना है, और उसमें से एक ही स्टूडेंट को टुमारो आफ्टरनून जो कंपटीशन में ये वर्ड फाइल प्रेजेंट करना है. So there will be a breakup.
That is very important.
Yes. So that is a breakup room where with the help of word file you have to present it. There will be 10 breakup room will be evaluated by different industry experts. And after that, there will be a prize. We can call it as a winner will be declared, and you will be given a certificate of winner of this particular competition. In between and before the competition, if you need any help, you can call Dr. Satish Polshettiwar sir, me, as well as in the chat groups, in the WhatsApp group, you can add your questions also. The main intention behind organizing this competition is to percolate in detail knowledge of 2 sessions, which are on the basis of regulatory affairs too. Any query, any question from students? From your side about this competition? I think I made you clear about this competition. I repeat, everything, every group and the details will be communicated to you. This blank sheet will be communicated to you.
Already I have posted in the WhatsApp group, sir.
Yes. So
only Excel sheet I have not shared. The Excel sheet I am going to share.
Yes.
Okay. This is the group that we prepared. You could see over here. Okay, I'll share this list to you on your WhatsApp group.
Yeah, for your convenience, a group is made like Shivaji University. We can call it as जो connect हो सकते हैं और जो अच्छे से presentation बना सकते हैं. With the help of this, all our core team made these groups by which you have your communication in between, and one should present that particular presentation. At the time of presentation, you should be present there, but one is going to present that word file.
So that is decided by your team. Your team, you can decide who is going to present that things.
Yes.
Other can then support that particular things.
Yes. In case, if in your group 5 students are there and only one student is present for this seminar, he one singly can present and take advantage of this, opportunity to present the knowledge gained during this particular program.
Because this is a workshop, we believe on work by doing. Okay, learn doing. That is our intention, not to make it, one-way model. Just you are attending session and just you are taking the certificate. So definitely you'll get certificate based on your knowledge and your expertise. Okay, probably that is going to be helpful to make you more and more, empowered. That is our ultimate aim. We are going to make you employable. Okay. So for that, please take part in these competitions actively. Okay, we need we seek your, supports, cooperation, any kind of, any help, technical help you require. We are always there. My number is there in the WhatsApp group. Dr. Amol sir is there. Our coordination team, Purva Chandurkar, Sakshi Mastuli, Varun Pandey, and Shivani. So 4 people are there in the group. Probably you can connect with all these people. Okay.
Any query from any students about this competition?
This is a group that we formed. This is from other than Shivaji University. We also formed the group.
Yes.
Over here, we are also providing the number to you also. Yes, I'll hide this slide.
Just you can put your question in the chat box. There is no issue about this competition.
Yeah, you can see the groups. Okay, we have formed the group. Just let me take the name. Yeah, I'll hide this.
Hello, sir.
Yes,
please.
You can speak, please.
Aditi.
Yes, sir. Do we need to share the document before the competition?
Yeah, probably maybe we will provide one email ID. You can share that, but you have to present during your presentation. Okay. So, but certainly you can send to us. Okay. Maybe I'll share my email ID. You can share your documents on that email ID. Okay. Not an issue. Great. So I'm going to share my email ID on the group. So you can share on those email ID. Okay. So these are the groups. You can see this sheet I'm going to share with you. Don't worry. Okay. So maybe I can just click this.
There is a mobile number. You can find
Mobile
the
number
mobile
also,
number
college
of the
name also
group
there.
member
Okay?
also.
Email ID also there.
Yes.
Everything is there. You can see. Anushka, you are in this group. You can see the group name. You can see. So we kept it MIT in one group. So for better, coordination purpose.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah.
Any query, Anushka?
No, sir, not right now. It's clear.
Yeah, great. Okay. So definitely, I'm going to share this sheet to you. Okay.
Yeah.
Any queries in between?
So any
no
query,
problems.
any question from the students?
So our team is also there. Miss Purva is there. Varun Pandey is there. Sakshi Mastul is there, and one more is Shivani. Okay. So number also there in the WhatsApp group. You can connect with them along with us. Not issue.
So I have some more announcement for tomorrow.
She's there.
Tomorrow we have a very interesting lecture of Dr. Nanesh Limay, specifically on the topic DCGI, CDSCO, IND submission. So there are very few experts in this domain, DCGI, CDSCO, IND submission. So I hope you will join this session exact at 10 a.m. in the morning. After that, there is at 11:30, there is a lecture of Dr. Sakshi Rastogi. Madam has experience of 19 years in pharmaceutical industry, and she is going to deliver her lecture on opportunities in medical devices, a very neglected, area in the regulatory affairs. Rightly mentioned by Sarika ma'am in the morning, there are very few people in the medical devices department. So please join at 11:30 if you wish to gain a lot of knowledge within a shortest period from these stalwarts like Dr. Sakshi Rastogi. Exact at 2 o'clock, we have alumni talk, because sometime if me as a candidate for admission consider, I always have a question in my mind, what about the pass out student of your college? So our alumni are going to talk about their placement. In the morning, you listened one of our successful alumni, Mahadik. She explained in detail about the course structure. We take each and every module seriously as well as strictly too. Everything is strictly carried out at MIT WPO, and the intention is your placement and your knowledge should be at par with the pharmaceutical industry. So I hope at 2 o'clock, again, you are going to listen alumni talk. Some of the alumni which are passed out from MIT WPO, you can ask them the questions. And afterward, after 2:15, there will be CTD competition presentations in the breakout room.
Sir, let me talk. Amol sir, disturb you.
Please.
Maybe I may brief how we are making the breakout room. We will
please.
A dry run. Okay. Now maybe I could see 78 participants are there. Let's have just dry run. Okay.
Yeah, so we'll have a dry run for 5 minutes. How the distribution will be there and how we have to present it.
Students, dear participants, really, we are very thankful and grateful that you are joined this workshop, today's workshop. Okay. So we are eager to hear you from that reports. So probably you can take part in that report making. If you have any issue, already Dr. Amol sir has explained you how to make that reports. So still, if you have any doubts regarding that report, how to make that CTD documents, how we can select do the survey on all. So probably, definitely we will guide you, because there are different website database are there that already we share. You go with that database, you put the drug name, you'll be getting entire pharmacology, PKPD. So that we can insert, that we can paste it in your, we can say your that CTD form. Now I'm going to explain you how we are going to make the group. So we all know in Zoom, there's one option, breakout room. Okay. So maybe I'm just making the breakout room, just dummy purpose. Yeah, let me. So now I could see 80 students are there. I'll make 10 a group. Okay. Just a minute. Now, maybe you can, now you can choose your room, but probably tomorrow we are assigning the room. Now, at this moment, you can choose the room. Aapko jo room mein jana hai, because there are 2 rooms. I'm going to create. So you can join any room that as per your wish. Can you see the room, students, participants? Can you?
Satish sir, can you stop this video now? This recording now first, and then we'll start.
Just
please. Yeah.
I'll just stop that. Okay. Let me stop the even.